This interview was never intended to be shared, and yet you're reading it now. It's said to have been recorded in the spring of 1930, but the journalist's name remains a mystery. The text was only recently discovered in a New York library's archive, tucked between the pages of a worn book titled Electricity and Ether. On the last page, there was a note: "Do not publish until humanity is ready." If you believe you already know everything about Nikola Tesla, you are mistaken. He was not only the brilliant inventor behind radio waves and alternating current, he dared to look into realms that even today remain unexplored, areas beyond the boundary of life itself. Mr. Tesla, the journalist began, among the many rumors, one stands out. Do you really believe in the soul and life after death? Tesla's answer was not immediate, but when he spoke, it was soft yet unwavering. Believe? No, I know. His words were so firm that the temperature in the room seemed to drop, as though he truly saw the things he was describing. Everything around us is an illusion of density, matter-compressed light. All things are made of vibrations, but these vibrations aren't just physical, they are consciousness, memory, and soul. But how can science explain such concepts? The journalist asked in awe. Tesla smiled slightly. Science is still blind, he said. It's just learning to see, and cracks are beginning to form. Light is emerging from within. Tesla paused, looking intently at the corner of the room, as if listening to something only he could hear. I've observed how energy leaves the body of the deceased. It doesn't vanish. It transitions, but not into heat or sound. It keeps its form, as if something exits without losing itself. At this point in the manuscript, there's a note that Tesla began speaking faster, as though there wasn't enough time to share everything. We humans are like lamps, he said. There is a source, and there is light. The lamp goes out, but the source remains. Energy never dies. At that moment, something strange happened. The journalist's pen stopped moving, the ink thickened, and the air grew dense and vibrating. Tesla said, without any hint of surprise, "You felt it, didn't you? This is the first proof. The field of the soul exists. It influences matter, even ink, even paper, and this is just the beginning." The journalist, gathering his courage, asked, "Excuse me, you said the field of the soul. That's not really something from physics, is it?" Tesla nodded, acknowledging the limitation of traditional science. "The physics you know is limited, but the soul is not," he replied. Then he walked to the window, staring out at Manhattan, which glittered behind the glass. But his voice no longer seemed directed at the present moment. It seemed to reach into the future. "There are 5 proofs," he began, 5 that I have personally experienced, studied, and documented. If even one of them is true, death is not the end. It is merely a transition." The journalist listened intently. "The first proof," Tesla continued, "is out-of-body experiences. I worked with powerful magnetic fields, and one day I found myself outside of my own body. My physical form remained in the laboratory, but my consciousness was elsewhere in the city. I saw the streets, the people. Everything I observed was later confirmed, down to the smallest detail." He paused. "This is not fantasy. This is the separation of consciousness. If it is possible in life, it is possible after," Tesla went on. "The second proof is the electrical memory of objects, thoughts, emotions, events. They leave an imprint, not just on people, but on matter itself. You've all experienced it. You enter an old house and you feel a wave of anxiety or sometimes warmth and calm. This is not imagination. It's the trace of space. The universe is like a film that records everything." The journalist, feverishly writing, asked, "The third?" Tesla closed his eyes. "The music of light. Every living thing emits sound, but not sound in the way we understand it. Not for the ear. There are vibrations. A human being is a symphony, and when the body dies, the sound doesn't vanish. It lingers, sometimes perceptible, like the presence of someone who is no longer there." He approached a device resembling an antenna, with wire pedals, explaining, "I've tried to capture this residual sound. Not noise, but a sensation, like someone nearby, someone who has passed. You can sometimes feel it." The journalist asked, "But if all this is true, why is there no public acknowledgement?" Tesla looked at him with sadness. "Because truth is dangerous. In a world built on the fear of death, the knowledge that death is not the end would shake everything. If we were to return, we would have to answer for everything, not before a court, but before ourselves." He waved his hand as if brushing aside something invisible, then continued, "The fourth proof is the connection between souls. Once I fainted at the exact moment my friend passed away in Europe. Later I received a letter. The date matched. That wasn't coincidence. We are all connected. Death doesn't sever the thread. The journalist, hardly able to breathe, asked, "And the fifth?" Tesla fell silent, his eyes distant. When he finally spoke again, it was almost in a whisper. Dreams that come true, not predictions, real conversations with those who have passed. Sometimes the same image appears to different people in different places on the same night. This is a bridge between worlds. He looked directly into the journalist's eyes. "If you think this is mysticism," Tesla said, "you're mistaken. This is science. It simply hasn't been described yet." A silence filled the air, thick like the stillness before a storm. "Mr. Tesla," the journalist began, speaking almost as if it were someone else's voice. "If the soul exists, if death is not the end, then why do we come into this world?" Tesla's eyes darkened, and a different kind of silence entered his voice, almost sacred. "To learn to suffer, to love, all at once. This is not a prison," he said. "It is a school, sometimes a battlefield, but not a place of punishment. We come to remember who we are and to pass the lesson, 1 or 1,000, until we become light." He walked over to a shelf and picked up a worn volume. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. "The voice of the silence," the journalist replied, his voice trembling. "Eastern philosophy? I do not agree with everything in it, but in one thing they are right. Death does not end the path. It only turns it." The journalist scribbled down his notes, his hand shaking. "Tell me honestly," he asked, "are you afraid of death?" Tesla shook his head. "No, I know her. She came for me more than once. I heard her footsteps, and once she almost took me." "And what did you feel?" the journalist asked, his voice almost a whisper. "Peace," Tesla said quietly. "There is no pain, no fear, just memories, pure like the first snow. You see everything you've done and everything you didn't do, whom you hurt, whom you saved. It's not a judgment, it's a mirror." He sat back down, his body weary but his eyes clear, like someone who had already crossed the threshold that others were still facing. "We do not answer to anyone but ourselves, to who we truly are, who we were before birth, and who we will become after." The journalist closed his eyes, feeling the buzz in his head. "And what awaits us after?" he asked quietly. Tesla gazed into the void as though recalling something long forgotten. "Imagine an ocean, but not of water, of energy. You are a drop, unique, with pain, with memory, with experience. When the body dies, you return to that ocean, but you remain yourself, only cleaner, without the mask. Do we meet those we loved? Family? If they have returned and there was love between you, then yes. Love is the navigation of the soul. It connects. It is stronger than death." His voice was soft but powerful, and it felt as though the very walls were vibrating with his words. Tesla leaned in a little closer. "I'll say more," he continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I tried to create a device capable of catching the moment consciousness exits the body, not death itself, but the transition. It almost worked. I felt a pulse, as if the heart of the universe beat in rhythm." The journalist leaned forward, eagerly listening. "And what happened?" "They destroyed it," Tesla said flatly. "Those who fear the truth, the ones who rule through fear, religion, power, corporations. If death is not the end, fear loses its power, and a person without fear is free, and the free cannot be controlled." Only the ticking of a clock could be heard in the room. "That's why this interview won't be released," Tesla said, standing up. "Not yet. Not until the time is right. If you're reading this, it means someone dared. It means the time has come." Tesla stepped closer to the journalist, his silhouette seeming taller and stronger. He whispered, "We are eternal not by body but by vibration. The soul is music and death is not a pause. It is a change in key." He began to walk around the room, carefully choosing his words like a surgeon selects his tools before an operation. "I understand how this may sound. Mysticism, the rambling of an old man. But if I hadn't felt, seen, and measured these things myself, I wouldn't believe them either." The journalist, no longer just a listener but someone drawn into the story, asked, "But why is science silent about all of this?" Tesla stopped and looked at him with intensity. "Because science fears the immeasurable," he replied. "It needs graphs, formulas, but the soul is not a formula. It is a state, a frequency, a field, a thought." Tesla walked briskly to the table, pulled out a drawing and unfolded it. It was strange, surrounded by symbols with a circle and a dot at the center. "This is not just geometry," he explained. "This is a map of transition, a diagram showing how the soul leaves the body and connects to the ether. but it can only be understood by one who remembers, not just knows. The journalist looked at the drawing, confused. Is this a theory? He asked. No, Tesla shook his head. This is a result. I worked with frequencies that correspond to states of consciousness. One range corresponds to emotions, another to memory, a third to the connection with those who are no longer here. He paused for a moment, reflecting on something deep. Sometimes at night, when everything is quiet, I turn on an old generator. If tuned correctly, you can hear, not with your ears, but with your soul, thoughts from others. Not from the living. It's like a radio signal from beyond the horizon. As he spoke, the light in the room flickered, and the journalist flinched, sensing something strange. Don't be afraid, Tesla said with a small smile. They always give a sign when we speak of them. The journalist was puzzled. Who are they? Tesla's gaze grew serious. They are those who have left, but remain between the layers, not because they were punished, but because they are not ready to leave. Or because they are waiting. He paused. Waiting for whom? For those who can hear them. Tesla stepped closer, his face solemn. There's something else, something rarely spoken aloud. Not all souls are the same. Some get stuck after death. They cling to fear, to power, to desire. They cannot rise. They need energy, bodies, and they are drawn to the living. The journalist turned pale, his heart racing. You mean ghosts? He asked. Tesla nodded. I speak of fields of fear, where there was pain, war, violence. The ether becomes heavy in these places. They become traps. One can enter and not come out. The journalist's voice trembled. But what about the others? Tesla softened. There is also light, love, memory, prayer. If it comes from the heart, it can set them free, not for God, but for the soul. True compassion breaks the wall. He looked out the window as though seeing something beyond the horizon. We live in a world where almost no one knows why they live. But if they knew that death is an exam, not an end, perhaps they would live differently, more purely, more deeply. The journalist quickly wrote down Tesla's words. The energy of the soul does not die. It changes frequency. One last question, he whispered. Mr. Tesla, will you return? Tesla smiled softly, almost with a touch of sadness. I never left, he said gently. As long as even one person seeks the truth, I am near. And in that very moment, as the manuscript records, the clock struck 3. 3 chimes echoed through the room, as though someone from the other side wished to confirm that everything said was not fiction. Tesla fell silent for a moment, then suddenly spoke again, this time in an almost reverent tone. There is one more secret I've told no one, he said. The journalist held his breath. What is it? He asked. Tesla walked over to an old cabinet, opened a hidden drawer, and retrieved a small metal cylinder. It was covered in strange symbols, looking like runes or diagrams. This is a prototype, Tesla explained. I called it the Echo Catcher. It is a device capable of detecting the energetic imprint of consciousness after death. Not voices, not images, pure thought. The journalist's eyes widened. And did you receive any signals from it? Yes, Tesla replied, several times. Phrases, thoughts, images. One of the clearest messages was, I am still here. Help me remember. The journalist asked, almost whispering, Who was it? Tesla paused, his gaze distant. I don't know, he said quietly. But the feeling was familiar. It was as if I was speaking to myself, or to someone I once was. He sat down, his voice growing softer. The memory of the soul is the most important thing. We are born and forget everything because if we remembered it all, the pain would be unbearable. But sometimes something seeps through, in dreams, in feelings, in déjà vu. The journalist nodded, recognizing the sensation himself, short flashes of memories that seemed impossible yet so real. You say everything is preserved. Where? In the ether, Tesla replied. It's like an ocean. In it everything, thoughts, emotions, events, is preserved. The ancients called it the Akasha. We are all drops of the same ether. Tesla looked directly into the journalist's eyes. Imagine that every one of your actions, every word is a note. You are composing music, and after death you hear it all at once. No editing, no lies, only truth. That is the judgment. But it is internal. You are the judge and the witness. The journalist shuddered. And if the music is false? Tesla took a deep breath, then spoke slowly. Then the soul asks for a chance to rewrite it. It returns in a new body, in a new life, but with the same vibration inside. He paused, then added, But there are other souls, those who have exited the cycle. They no longer need to return. They become light guides. Their task is to remind others who we truly are. The journalist, almost breathless, asked, "Angels?" Tesla smiled slightly, his eyes glinting. "Call them what you will. The essence is what matters. They are near, especially in the dark, especially when a person thinks they are alone. That is love, the kind that never dies." The journalist looked at the clock. Time seemed to have vanished, as though it had slipped away unnoticed. "And if someone lives a life without love, will they return?" he asked. Tesla replied firmly, "Because only love shapes the soul. Without it, there is no movement, only repetition." He stood, his shadow stretching long like that of a tree at sunset. "I share this not for sensation," Tesla said, his voice full of gravity. "It's just that I will soon be gone, and this knowledge must not die with me." He handed the cylinder to the journalist. "Keep it, and if the time comes, pass it on. If it doesn't come, it will when the first person remembers who they were." The journalist took the cylinder in his hands, feeling its warmth, a tremor, or perhaps a breath, coming from within. "What am I supposed to do with it?" he whispered. Tesla looked at him with a touch of sadness in his eyes. "Don't rush," he said. "Just keep it close and listen to yourself. It will tell you when to activate it." Silence filled the room, and it felt as if the very air was alive. "One more question," the journalist said, his voice trembling. "If you were so close to the truth, did no one else know?" Tesla gazed out the window, the first light of dawn beginning to pale the sky. "There were others," he replied, "but few. Almost all of them chose silence, either out of fear or humility. Truth is like fire. It warms, but it can also burn. It cannot be imposed. It can only be offered." He sighed as though reliving a moment long past. "Once I almost said everything. It was in Colorado. I was giving a lecture on resonance, but I intended to speak about the soul. And just as I began to talk about the invisible connection between people, an official appeared and stopped the lecture. Since then, I stayed silent." The journalist lowered his head, deep in thought. "And now?" he asked softly. "Now I speak," Tesla said quietly, "because I know the time is almost here." Tesla stepped closer, his eyes intense. "You think this interview is just a story, but it's a seed. It will fall into someone's mind, and it will begin to grow. Not in everyone, but in those who are ready." The journalist stood, feeling an overwhelming sense of realization. "If you're hearing this now," Tesla said, leaning in, "perhaps this is the sign." The journalist stood, feeling the weight of Tesla's words settling in his chest. He could sense that this was the end and the beginning at the same time. "One last thing," he thought to ask, his voice shaking. "Who are we?" Tesla replied without hesitation, his voice steady and sure. "We are light that has forgotten it is light, and everything we do is a path back home." They shook hands, simply, as humans, and in that moment a faint chime echoed through the room. There was no source, no reason for it, but it rang clear and pure. "They are here," Tesla whispered, already listening. He turned toward the window, his eyes reflecting something distant. "See," he said softly, "dawn is still pale, but it's coming." The journalist, moved beyond words, turned and left. The door closed silently behind him. As he later wrote, "I left a different man, as if someone had awakened inside me, not in my mind, but in my heart." The interview was never published. The papers were kept in a secret box along with the cylinder, hidden among Tesla's personal belongings. Then, almost 100 years later, the box was discovered. And now you are holding it in the form of these words. Perhaps it is not by chance that you are reading this now. As Tesla said, death is not a period, it is a comma, after which we continue to write in another language. If this story made you reflect, leave a like. For you, it's just a second. For us, it's a chance to share such things with those who are ready to listen. Write in the comments what you felt. We read every word. Sometimes there is more truth in them than in the loudest headlines. And of course, subscribe. Many more stories are ahead. Stories that don't just tell, but awaken. Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. The key is knowing how to listen. See you soon.